What do we do with a season of waiting? What do we do in that waiting period? This is something that I've been thinking about, the time between the promise and the proper time of fulfillment. And I've been thinking about this anyway, but this morning I was in Luke chapter 1, where you all know the story of the angel Gabriel going to Zechariah and announcing the good news that his wife Elizabeth would be the mother of a child, John the Baptist. Well, you get to verse 20, and this is what caught my attention. In verse 20, the angel Gabriel says to Zechariah, "You did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their proper time." And that phrase, proper time, those two words, I underlined them, and I started to think about that, and I thought, okay, wait, there's a promise and there's a proper time of fulfillment. But what happens in between those two things? And that's really important. And I think that we go straight from the promise that the angel made in the temple to the birth of John the Baptist. Or you could plug in any number of stories in both the Old and New Testament where we want to go straight from the promise to boom, the proper time. But there's a whole span of time in between where God is actively working. And we get a little bit of that, what I would kind of consider a blank space, except for it's not blank space, in Luke 1, where we see that Elizabeth actually goes into seclusion for 5 months. So there's the promise, and then before the fulfillment at the proper time, Elizabeth is in seclusion for 5 months. Wouldn't you love to know what God and Elizabeth talked about in that time? What God was doing in her heart, how he was preparing her. I love that thought. Then we know that in the 6th month, Mary, the mother of Jesus, comes and visits Elizabeth, and they have all kinds of dialogue, and there's all kinds of things going on there that's not just about Elizabeth and not just about her baby and not just about Zechariah, but about Jesus and Mary and Joseph and, my goodness, really the rest of the world. But what I want us to think about is, what are we doing in that time between the promise and the proper time of fulfillment? Because I believe that God is doing some of his most important work in that time. And I think if you're like me, and I'm sure we're similar, that none of us like that in between time, that we want to rush it, we want to get to the proper time. But God is at work, and we want to hang on. And so I just want to encourage you with that. It was an encouragement to me out of scripture this morning. And I want to encourage you to press in, lean in. God is preparing you for what he has prepared for you.